"I don't like anything about you, Mother," my eldest son's wife suddenly hurled at me. "We want to live with our family alone, so get out." Her words hit me like a wave of déjà vu, echoing the pain of leaving my own parents' home long ago. Anger surged within me at the thought of being driven out once more. "Fine, I'll leave then," I declared, gathering my belongings to move out. It was the final straw. I vowed never to forgive my eldest son's wife. It was time to put my plan into action. And so, Sandra Clark, turning 61 this year, technically retired but still fortunate to be working, found herself in a familiar situation. Despite occasional visits to the office and remote meetings from home, her eldest son seemed unaware of her continued work. Widowed in her 40s, Sandra lived with her eldest son and his wife in her parents' old house with its sprawling property. While the place had its issues, she cherished it deeply, making leaving difficult. Financially secure due to her late husband's untouched insurance payout, Sandra lived a worry-free lifestyle, prepared for her twilight years. Despite appearing to lead a carefree life, I do harbor some concerns, chiefly concerning my oldest son's wife, Jessica. Her strong-willed personality frequently clashes with mine, a dynamic that began when she first announced their engagement. I can still vividly recall the outfit she wore during that initial introduction, a tracksuit that seemed more suited to high school than such a significant occasion. Her rationale was that she wanted me to see her authentically, but from a practical standpoint, it struck me as an unconventional choice. Though I hesitate to label it as deceit, her tendency to argue relentlessly, coupled with her articulate nature, often complicates matters. I often wondered why my eldest son chose her as his partner. Later, I learned it was Jessica who pursued him. Despite her unconventional behavior, her beauty seemed to captivate my somewhat naive and sheltered son. Even after they married, the pattern persisted. One could say she lacks pretense, but more critically, her actions sometimes defy common sense. I had initially wanted to oppose their marriage, but I chose to respect my son's wishes and exercise patience. Now, I see the consequences unfolding before me. After the wedding, my son insisted we live together in our family home, a decision I thought Jessica would oppose. Surprisingly, she was in favor of it, but her reasons soon became apparent. Despite being a full-time housewife, she had quit her job at the time of marriage. Jessica never contributed to household chores like cleaning, laundry, or meal preparation. Instead, she left everything to me, even though I worked remotely and had less free time than her. When I sat at my computer for work, Jessica would make belittling remarks, dismissing my job as mere play. "Jessica, since you have plenty of spare time, could you help with the cleaning?" I once asked her while she was engrossed in a TV drama. She shot me a disgusted look, sighed dramatically, and retorted, "I don't do housework for your sake, Mother. Can't you see that? It's sad you don't appreciate my consideration." She defended her stance with a bizarre theory, claiming that doing housework would rob me of my only activity, leading to a sedentary lifestyle and potential dementia. In her view, she was actually helping by letting me handle everything. Her logic baffled me and left me frustrated. "I agreed to live together to make sure you don't slack off, Mother," Jessica said with a half smile, leaving me speechless and dumbfounded. I deeply regretted agreeing to live together. Every day felt like an ordeal, forced to witness things I wish I hadn't seen if we had remained separate. Enduring the daily chores under Jessica's watchful eye became unbearable. Eventually, I reached my breaking point and decided to discuss it with my eldest son, not to complain about Jessica, but to express my need to move to an apartment where I could live independently. The current house, with its age and numerous levels, had become physically challenging, especially after injuring my back last year due to age-related issues. My son understood my difficulties and supported my decision to move. I found a suitable rental apartment, slightly larger than necessary for solo living but with a room big enough for my grandchildren to stay over in the future. I customized the interior to my liking, creating my own sanctuary. However, my newfound peace was short-lived. Jessica began visiting every day, staying until late into the night. "This new apartment is really nice, isn't it? It's quite spacious for you, Mother," she remarked casually, lounging on the living room couch. "Come on, Mother, come back to your old home and take care of the house chores. It's for your health and longevity," Jessica urged, astonishing me with her audacity. Throughout the day, her self-centeredness often left me feeling overwhelmed. I had already moved out. It was time for her to step up as the wife. "I manage all the household tasks here, and my annual checkups have been excellent, Jessica. There's no need for your concern," I replied firmly. Jessica turned away dismissively, refusing to acknowledge my words as she typically did with anything inconvenient. Despite this, Jessica continued visiting my apartment daily. Recently, she even complained about the hassle of commuting back, opting to stay overnight. My parents' home and this apartment were just a 15-minute walk apart. It was my eldest son's suggestion that I move closer to my parents' home out of concern for my well-being. While his worry touched me, leaving the house was still bittersweet. One day, during a rare business-related outing, returning home that evening, I was greeted by a surprise. To my disbelief, Jessica had let herself into my apartment using the spare key I had given to my son for emergencies. "Oh, welcome back," she said casually, sprawled on the floor in front of the TV without making any effort to get up. "Jessica, that spare key is meant for emergencies only, not for you to enter when I'm not here," I told her, feeling uneasy about her unauthorized entry into my space. For the first time, I spoke sternly to her, which seemed to catch her off guard since she was accustomed to my forgiving nature. Annoyance flashed across her face, but I held my ground. "You're such a nosy mother-in-law. I can't stand that about you." Jessica started yelling at me. "I can't stand anything about you, not even this apartment. We're a family, so you should leave." She began pushing me towards the door, clearly unable to accept me living in the apartment. She resented that they were staying in the old house while I resided here, considering it unfair. "James pays the rent for this place, isn't he? It's only natural for us, his family, to live here. That's what living beyond your means." It dawned on me that Jessica believed my son was funding the apartment's rent, explaining her frequent visits. In her view, this apartment should have been designated for her family's use. "Fine, I'll leave," I replied firmly, meeting Jessica's gaze head-on. I agreed to vacate within 3 days. Jessica seemed doubtful, insisting that I call a moving company right then and there. Without hesitation, I dialed a moving service from my smartphone and arranged for them to come in 2 days. Satisfied, Jessica left, and as I watched her depart, I began to devise a plan. True to my word, I moved out on schedule. My new residence was a senior-specific apartment, and I decided to give it a trial run for 2 weeks. Handing over the keys and lease documents to Jessica, I requested modifications to the contract through the real estate agent, who thankfully was accommodating due to our long-standing relationship. My eldest son was livid with Jessica for forcing me out. He seemed to be contemplating divorce, but Jessica appeared indifferent. Instead, she had moved into my former apartment, declaring, "Well then, let's live separately." Her audacity astounded me. However, in 5 days, Jessica would learn the truth. While I worked remotely, my phone began incessantly ringing. It was Jessica calling. Anticipating this, I had a recorder ready to capture our conversation. Pressing record, I answered the call. "Mother, what's with this rent for the apartment? Why am I being asked to pay? This isn't fair." Jessica's voice rang out, clearly agitated and flustered. "Oh, what, Jessica, as the current leaseholder, it's only fair that you pay. Is there an issue?" I deliberately maintained a calm and leisurely tone to provoke Jessica. Clearly flustered, Jessica grew more agitated but held her ground. "James used to cover the rent here. Since we're not divorced yet, shouldn't he be the one paying?" When Jessica brought up the rent issue with my eldest son, he advised her to speak directly with me, knowing I was aware of the truth, that he had never paid the rent. In reality, I had been financially supporting him. Following my retirement from my job, I continued as a consultant for the company and also worked as an industry advisor, providing guidance upon request and earning a substantial income. With my established reputation, I earned far more than my eldest son. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding, Jessica. Originally, I was the one paying the rent for that place. James never contributed a cent," I clarified. Jessica, who had hoped to enjoy her newfound independence in the apartment, appeared shocked and taken aback. After briefly expressing her thoughts, she abruptly ended the call. Without delay, I contacted my eldest son and played him the recorded conversation. "I've been tolerating it for a while too, but I've reached my limit. You feel the same way, don't you?" I understood that my son was exhausted from dealing with the debts Jessica had accumulated. No matter how grown-up he was as a parent, I couldn't help but want to assist. Despite criticism that I might be too lenient, I believed it was natural as a parent. My son responded in a subdued voice, "I'm going to divorce her. I'm tired too." "Then follow my lead," I instructed him, outlining my plan. I asked him to take 3 days of paid leave starting today and discreetly move out his essential belongings without Jessica noticing. Avoid using large trucks that might attract her attention, I cautioned, advising him to move things gradually during the night to an undisclosed location, a single-family home I had arranged as a final residence. The plan proceeded covertly. 3 days later, I received another call from Jessica, who sounded even more flustered than before. "What? Why are you so agitated? I responded in a deliberately calm manner, much like before. Jessica was visibly anxious, almost panicking. Mother, our house is on the market, and my parents told me my things are at their place. What's going on? It turned out my eldest son had followed my instructions. He had relocated and sent Jessica's belongings to her parents' house, putting their former home up for sale and leaving it empty. The landlord had informed Jessica that if she couldn't pay the rent, she would need to vacate. I was going to discuss it with James, but when I returned home, I found chains and a padlock on the gate. And there's a for sale sign, she explained in distress. Jessica was on the verge of hysteria when she arrived home, clearly taken aback by the situation. There are a few things that need to be clarified, I began, seizing the moment to release all the pent-up frustration. Firstly, I'm no longer your mother-in-law, correct? Yesterday, James filed for divorce. You signed the papers, didn't you? You and I are now strangers. My son submitted the divorce papers to the city office yesterday. It turns out you had already signed them long ago. Threatening divorce to get your way seems to have been a habit of yours, I continued, reflecting on how my son had hoped Jessica would change. He once confided that he felt compelled to give in whenever you threatened divorce, but now he's woken up. You always told James you could divorce him anytime. Are you satisfied now that things have gone your way, Jessica? I sensed Jessica holding her breath on the other end of the line, unable to respond. She must have been frustrated. Moreover, I'm concerned about your future. Without a job after the divorce, how will you afford to stay in that apartment? Moving costs money too. It's going to be tough. How did you manage to pay for all this? Jessica no longer hid her anger, shouting and cursing at me over the phone. She claimed she married my son because my late husband left an inheritance. However, I manage all the inheritance, and she can't touch a penny of it, she shouted, frustrated that her marriage hadn't solved her financial troubles. I made sure my son heard every word of that conversation. If it comes to a divorce settlement, this recording will be my evidence. Thinking the argument had reached its end, I waited patiently for Jessica to finish her outburst. I'm sorry. My family has disowned me. I have nowhere else to go. Please help me, she finally pleaded, tears in her voice. Her reckless spending and borrowing had strained her relationship with her parents, leading to their disarmament. Looking back, I remember feeling something wasn't right at the wedding. It suddenly dawned on me. Jessica, with nowhere to turn. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I reminded myself that her current situation was a result of her own choices. Apologies now won't change anything. We're strangers now. There's nothing more to discuss. I wish you luck in the future, I concluded firmly before ending the call. Relief washed over me afterward. Apparently, Jessica had caused a scene at my eldest son's workplace, escalating to the point where the police were called. When he returned home, Jessica found herself locked out of the apartment she had been squatting in without paying rent, the landlord having changed the locks in her absence. She likely attempted to contact either me or my son, but we had already canceled our cell phones and switched to new numbers. We didn't disclose our new address either, leaving her unable to reach us no matter how persistently she tried. I could only imagine her despair upon realizing this. After her disruptive incident at my son's workplace, a restraining order was issued against her. With few options left, it seemed she turned to her estranged family. Upon returning to her family home, she encountered a heartbreaking sight. The luggage I had sent there was left abandoned in the backyard, exposed to the rain. She wasn't even allowed inside the house. Her unpaid apartment rent had been passed on to her parents, likely deepening their resentment. Rumors circulated that she was now staying in an apartment provided by a homeless support organization. Stripped of her previous lifestyle, she appeared visibly stressed when I encountered her on the street. I was taken aback by how much her hair had grayed and how weathered her skin had become. She had changed so drastically that I almost didn't recognize her at first. It underscored how profoundly one's circumstances can alter a person. Meanwhile, I had begun a new chapter in the home purchased with my late husband's inheritance. Opting for a duplex, I ensured my son had the option to remarry whenever he wished. While he joins me for dinner occasionally, he manages his own affairs otherwise. This arrangement feels just right to me, a balance of closeness and independence. Proceeds from selling my parents' home are earmarked for future needs, including support for my son and his future wife, and provisions for any future grandchildren. I'm also considering realizing my dream of an English garden on the property. On days off, I find solace in tending to young trees and herbs. This new life, filled with optimism, has become my cherished daily routine.